That was wonderful.
So tonight we're going to talk about, it was up here, the mysterious nature of care.
No, we're not.
We're not.
That's why I took it down.
Got it.
So
So
the
when,
mysterious ways we nurture life.
there you go. Yes, expect it to be lively, right? So, you know what, I really didn't understand at first when I talked to Eileen, what is it that you want to say this evening? Because I need to have some grasp of where this is going to go. Not that I'm a control freak, but I need to have some idea. And we had this actually fabulous conversation about what care and nurturing meant in all the different aspects of it. So it went wide, but it also is very focused and very beautiful and very elegant. So as you work on your book about care, it's a perfect dialogue. Being a chiropractic office, being that my life's dedicated to care, and many of ours, in fact probably all of ours, to discuss what that means. And I'm going to let you take the lead tonight, and I'm going to kind of work with it, and we'll see where it goes.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So welcome, and
After he
let's get
tells me
started.
he's a control freak. Then he says, it's in your court. So I was always wondering what was the first question you were going to ask me. So now that you've learned so much about care, Dr. Craig, what is it that you'd like to know?
I wasn't prepared for that.
Touche.
Okay. Does somebody have to be caring to care?
That's a good question.
That's a very good question.
Ta-da, pulled that out. All right. Your court.
Okay. So I will begin by, how many nurses are in the room? Or former nurses.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay.
Okay. How many people have ever been a patient? Excellent. How many people have ever been a child?
People still are.
She didn't raise her hand, I'm concerned.
Skip that phase. Advance. Big.
She's an avatar.
So I will ask you, does somebody have to be caring to care?
That's passing the buck.
Well, what do you
Or
think?
facilitating a dialogue.
Yes.
You have to be empathetic, and not everybody is empathetic.
Okay, do you have to be caring?
Caring to me means empathetic.
Okay, great. What
You can
else
put
does it
yourself in
mean?
somebody else's shoes and feel their pain.
Okay, good. So that's what caring means to you. Okay,
But
well,
even if they are not wearing shoes,
yes,
yes, like plants, for example, I feel their pain.
right.
Always been very empathetic.
Yes, my mother used to tell me, or I read when I was a little girl, I don't know what it's like to walk it to, let's see, how did it go? Something about a man that has no feet.
Oh, I cried and cried because I had no
Shoes until I met a
So
man
I
who had
had
no
no
feet.
feet.
Right. Well, and I don't know that we can answer that question. I would answer the question, do you have to be caring to care, by saying that's a repetitive question. And I guess it would have to be what you mean by caring. And I think what you mean by caring, based on what you've told me and what you've read, is that it means empathy and
It was in that direction.
Yeah.
Sure. So does somebody have to, is caring a showing of kindness? Is
Okay,
caring
great.
a showing of recognition, of being present with, of sharing one's heart with? So in that relationship, that's one way that I look at caring. So taking what you said.
right,
But I think there are other dimensions of it, but that's the one that comes most intuitively to me.
right. And that's very common. So what I wanted to say before we get sort of as a set of assumptions that we're beginning with is that first I want to thank the people in this room that have helped me understand care. Jane and I have been working on my book for the past 2 months, haven't we? And we meet regularly and we share ideas, and she brings out certain aspects that I haven't thought about. And Alan inspired me by his book, which is called Learning to Float, and his experience in being a caregiver to his wife. And Kate, who, when I asked her what she did, she said, I do what is necessary. And Kate, to me, is the Kate's a nurse, but she's also the most incredible homemaker that I've ever known. And she has run a major farm for 25, 30 years and done all of the things that women learn to do and have done in the past. And so, and my partner, Mary, who has taught me what it's like to be a man. And by that I mean, never in my life, until this very recent time, have I ever not been concerned about my environment and the surroundings and things, whether we had enough food, whether we had enough money, whether the garbage got taken out, whether the laundry got done. I've never had to worry about those. I've always had to be concerned about those things. And I never understood what it was like not to feel that way until I became the breadwinner, so to speak, because I teach online. And Mary is on disability. And so in the process of my writing about care, Mary assumed the role. Oh, she's called him Kay. I am so sorry. Kay has become the caregiver in our house. She has become the homemaker. She does all the cooking, and it took me a month to get over feeling guilty that I wasn't doing any cooking. I wasn't doing half the cooking, I wasn't doing half the housework, I wasn't doing half of anything, because I'm teaching full-time online pretty much. And suddenly I realized what an incredible relief that was. It was like air coming under my wings, and I had no idea how much that constant concern and involvement was part of my life. So I want to say a couple of things before we get into the real discussion about care. I was trying to think about what this was like. And this is going to sound kind of odd, but I feel a little bit like Barack Obama talking about racism for African Americans. Because Barack Obama is African and American, but he doesn't have the same culture as people who were children of slaves in this country. Well, I have to confess that besides the fact that I worried a lot about being a homemaker, I'm really lousy at it. I was not one of the folks that learned it from their mom. My mother said, my mother was an Irish Catholic born in a home with no floor, moved to this country, became enamored with the flapper lifestyle, and she sort of became upwardly mobile. And so when I was a little kid, she said, don't learn how to do housework. You'll be doing it all your life. Well, let me tell you something. I can't organize my way out of a paper bag. Carol will tell you. Because Carol and Craig are on the board of Transition Whidbey with me, and I can do tasks, but don't ask me to organize a major event. I can't, because I never learned what women know about how you run a house and multitask in all those ways that women know how to multitask, because they have to do it from the time they're small. Kate was picking beans with her mother when she was 4 years old. I was playing with dolls. I was playing teacher, not nurse, by the way. So every one of us has a different experience of caring. And there are reasons why most of the men, when I studied care, told me that caring was something that humans do. And though caring and these were nurses, these were either LPNs or nurses' aides, and that their job was their job description. And that was the work they did. And when they took care of people in being empathetic and kind, it was because they were human beings. It wasn't because it was their job. Now, most of the women that I talked with that were nurses and patients, there was no split. It was all about a relationship. It was all about the relationship with the patient. And it wasn't that the men didn't have relationships with the patients, it's that they thought about it in a very different way. They thought about offering a drink of water as an act of empathy. The women thought about offering a drink of water as part of preventing dehydration. And it was an act of caring. But for them, it was completely intertwined in the process of doing the work. So the reason I mentioned Barack Obama is that, A, I'm a woman, and basically, I'm really lousy at doing home. I've had to learn what it was, what all the aspects of caring that women do, I learned from the women that I know. I have no intuitive sense about, I'm very empathetic. I learned how to do that, but I never learned how to do the kind of groundwork that is really part of caring.
So is caring a verb or an adverb? Is it an action or a description?
Well, it depends on who you ask. It's both. You know, caring is different for each group of people. And it's interesting the kinds of questions you're asking, because you're asking pretty abstract questions.
I am, but I just, in the sentence, okay, not meant to be that way,
No.
but in the sentence before, I heard you really use it in two ways. I heard the nurses providing care. It was something like they were offering a glass of water, they're offering the care, they're offering preventative care, they're offering this thing, like it's a noun. And then on the other hand, to care, to offer, to be sympathetic, to be empathetic is a descriptor, so I'm just hearing it in two very different ways. So that's all I was pointing to.
Okay, so anyway, let me go back to this business about being Barack Obama.
Please, finish the analogy.
Yes, I will. Because, and it's also about talking to a mixed group of African Americans and Caucasian people. The women and men in this room do not see care the same way. And I would suggest that most of the men in the room think they understand what care means to women. Maybe you don't think that. I would say that most of the men in the world either think they understand it or they just ignore it. And so I put two diagrams up there. Art was not my strong suit either, besides homemaking. That's a normal curve, as most of y'all know what a normal curve is. So in anthropology, we study variation. And so when I'm speaking, please do not think that I mean that every man in this room thinks the same thing. I don't. And as I've already pointed out, all women are not the same on the spectrum of caregiving or caring. When we talk about the central tendency of a group of men, for example, what I'm using in my book is, I'm talking about the men who don't eat quiche. In the book, Real Men Don't Eat Quiche. There's a stereotype where there's a belief in this culture about what it means to be a man. And when I'm speaking of men, most of the men that hold that, tend to be part of that Real Men Don't Eat Quiche. Aside from the sensitive New Age guys that Christine Lavin wrote a song about, that all live on Whidbey. Not all, but a lot of them. South Whidbey, yeah. The quiche guys are in the Navy.
Yeah.
So there's always a spectrum of men and women. There's a spectrum of patients. There's a spectrum of nurses. There's a spectrum of caregivers. And so when I studied care originally, what I'm trying to get is the picture of the whole understanding of all the ranges of care, from the person who thinks that it's all cerebral or it's all heart, and so to the person who thinks that it's all about just doing. Those aren't the dimensions. But what I was looking at was, what's the whole map and where do different people fit into the map? So that was my first research that I did on it. But I just want to make sure that you may have a twinge of something, either saying that's not me or that is me or she's dead wrong about this. I'm open to hearing everybody's view, because that, it is an exploration. What I have learned thus far is that women on this planet are doing the majority of the work that supports life.